Hello and welcome. I'm Christina, an artist and illustrator. Today I'm sharing some quick tips you requested. We'll be coloring this coffee bar page, and I'll show you how to color a clear item and a metal item. You can use these tips on any page you like. I'm working in my charming Places and Spaces book available on Amazon, and I'll link that down below. We'll start with this clear glass jar of cookies. As you can see, the background is two different colors because I wanted it to look like the light bulbs above the coffee machine are casting a glow on the areas underneath it. When you're trying to make an item look transparent, you need to pay attention to the background. You need to match the colors and style of whatever is behind it. Since I have a dark blue and a light blue, I'm continuing that on right behind the cookies. I used a pencil to add a shadow line and the table line right behind the jar. After I added the light blue color, I waited for it to dry completely, and now I'm adding the dark blue color. Don't forget to stop at the table line, because if you color the entire jar blue behind the cookies, it won't look like it's sitting on a table anymore. You can see that I colored the table after I colored the background, because I wanted to get that finished before I continued the table behind the jar of cookies. If you like the wood grain effect, check the links down below and I'll share my video where I color a cabin the exact same way. Don't forget to color the table right underneath the cookies as well. I almost forgot to do that myself. Now we'll use a black fine liner to cover the pencil lines that represent the back of the table. To finish this transparent jar of cookies, we'll color in the lid and add some shadows and highlights. You can see here I made my cookies glitter cookies. And I also made sure to follow the light and shadow line, making parts of the cookies lighter and some parts darker. To give the jar even more dimension, I'm adding a shadow here on the right side since it's the farthest from the light source. Moving on to the espresso machine, I'm using 3 different shades of gray. The exact shades aren't important. What is important is that you have a light, medium, and dark value. To figure out where my light and dark values would go on this machine, I looked up a reference image of an espresso machine, and I also took into consideration the light source above it on the page. You can't see them, but all of my gray markers are uncapped. I used 3, and I started with my lightest shade, coloring the middle part of the machine. While the lightest shade is still wet, I moved on to my medium shade, and I colored just a little bit over where I colored first, and then moved up a bit. Even though I didn't finish that section, I went down to the bottom and grabbed my darkest shade, and colored over that area before it dried. Quickly, I moved up to where I stopped and used my darker shade to finish coloring that section. Blending and gradients can be tricky to get them to look right, so I strongly suggest practicing. While the darkest gray was still wet, I went in with my medium gray and just ran it along the edge of where the medium and darkest gray met to get a better blend. If you really don't like blending skies, like I didn't when I first started coloring, this is a great object to practice on because it's small and fairly simple. Fun fact, when I was a teenager, my second job was as a barista at a local coffee shop, and this page brings back a lot of fond memories. I'm using the same technique at the bottom of the machine here. The area I'm coloring now is where you would place your coffee mugs if you were filling them with espresso or frothed milk. This area is mostly in shadow and it gets darker as it goes back towards that line. Now we're working on the front of the machine and it's getting hit by the overhead light, so it'll be a little bit lighter. I'm darkening just the top of this area for a very slight gradient. And for contrast, I'm making the center area a little bit darker. The top of the machine is getting hit by the most light, but it does recede into the background, so I'm using my mid-tone gray to make it slightly darker in the back and underneath the coffee mugs. This area of the machine is getting a lot of light as well, so I'll be adding a slight gradient at the bottom of this section in just a moment. Here is where I'm adding the medium gray, and I'm just slightly overlapping the lighter gray that I've already colored in. Here comes the darkest gray, and I slightly go over the line on the left, but that's an easy fix. I cover it with white gel pen later. You can see here I'm coming back in with my medium gray and overlapping the darkest and the lightest grays for a better blend. Even though I'm coloring this machine traditionally with grays, I think it would be fun to try some wild colors like pinks or greens and see how that turns out. Finally, we're adding our highlights. Since metal objects are usually shiny, I'm taking a white gel pen and adding highlights at the areas where the light hits the most. I'm adding highlights to all the knobs and buttons. I really love adding highlights to all my pages. It really makes them pop. If you're interested in any of the materials I'm using, I'll be sure to link them down below, and don't forget to let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. Now it's time for shadows, so I'm adding it to the areas underneath the top of the machine. You'll notice I add the darkest shadows way in the back here behind the lighter items. I'm also adding a shadow here to the bottom middle area, and you won't see it in this video, but I do add shadows underneath the machine on the wood table. If you're a little nervous to try gradients on the espresso machine, I recommend trying this coffee grinder first. Just like before, I started with my lightest gray, and while it was still wet, I added darker to the bottom for a gradient blend. I'm finishing the top here and adding my medium gray slightly over the lightest gray and letting it bleed together. Since it's such a small area, I'm taking that medium gray and hitting the bottom again because I know it will all blend together well. I'm going in with my darkest grays on just the ends, and again, it's all still wet, so it will bleed very nicely together. I decided to come back in with my medium gray, slightly overlap the darker areas, and then color it all in again because I really liked how it was looking. To finish the machine, I colored the lid, the top, the bottom, and the whole area dark shades of gray. And of course, I'm adding the highlights. Here's my completed page. Honestly, the hardest part was picking the color palette. I settled on blues and oranges, and I love how the lighting effect, shadows, and highlights all worked out. This is the second time I tried this page. I'll share my first attempt under the Community tab on YouTube, so check it out and let me know what you think. Thank you for joining me. I absolutely love having you here. Take care, and I'll see you soon.